She is more just kind of I'd say a stand-in of what I'm like overall trying to communicate. So she herself is not important. It's more so just this kind of like overall feeling of feeling lucky, not feeling lucky, where we kind of push the feeling of lucky with, because that's what the grasshoppers symbolize, as well as the fortune cookies that the hands are opening. But because bugs are not always a positive thing for people, it also kind of has a little bit more of an ominous vibe, as well as the fact that the fortune is kind of going in one ear and out the other. And so it kind of leaves you in a little bit of a limbo of, is this actually kind of a positive feeling, or is it maybe a little bit something that you should be like cautious of? My name is Carley Brown, and this is my show, Layers of Whimsy. This is my piece right here called Feeling Lucky. It is an oil painting on a 24 by 24 canvas. I like to kind of play around with color and repetition of patterns. And so I do have quite a bit of these grasshoppers, as well as kind of just playing around with the smearing of the paint and kind of layering, as well as going in and doing outlines with colors we typically wouldn't see in such areas like the blonde hair with this kind of like teal-ish like lines that kind of go through it. I would say it's more so like a piece by piece. This one actually came to me when I was like showering, and I called my partner over and I was like, bring me my sketchbook real quick so I could like sketch it out so I wouldn't forget the idea. And once I have the initial idea, I like to kind of build on it with the actual symbolism, as well as, you know, what overall am I trying to feel about it. So first the idea comes to me, and then kind of the puzzle and figuring out how I want it to look and what it means comes after the fact. This piece is nostalgia. This one is, most of my paintings, except from like very few, are done in oil. And this one, I can't necessarily remember the exact reason why I made it, but I do remember I was trying to convey this overall feeling of nostalgia based off the title, where the hands are holding this like thrifted flower frame that I did actually have, as well as the fact that we have this kind of like meant to be kind of older looking wallpaper. And then growing up, I'm not initially from Arkansas, I'm from North Carolina, but regardless, they both have cicadas. And being reminiscent of loving bugs and growing up in the South, that the cicadas are a very nostalgic thing for me. And so kind of pushing that over, as well as the leaves that are kind of growing out of the hands, kind of like this just feeling of old, but the colors are still warm. And so it's just meant to kind of be like a nice kind of cozy feeling overall from this piece. The titles are very simple. It's just based off the color of the rat. So we have the pink rat, purple, and we also have the blue. And just like most of my other works, they are done in oil. These ones in particular, just like most of my paintings, it's more so the idea and then what I feel comes afterwards. And so with the rats, I've always loved the combination of very like realistic, naturalistic subject matter, and then something that's a little bit more two-dimensional and kind of squishing them together. And so this is an example where I wanted to do kind of a more realistic rat, but then putting this kind of like vintage, kind of like floral, like wallpaper pattern on top of it. It also is very resemblant of like kind of China. And so it's something to kind of be cherished, something to kind of like, it's very small, very unique. And that's kind of like what I like about these paintings, is with like each pattern is different. It's meant to kind of make you feel something a little different, as well as the fact that the rats all are different poses. And so kind of depending on how you feel might determine like which one you gravitate towards. Like I said, this one has probably the most action in it, and that it's kind of awake, it's alert, but it's still, even though it looks like it maybe could scamper off, it's still small, it's still, you know, has the pattern. And so it is something that's kind of like, maybe even considered unique or like one of a kind. I don't know if I'd ever say like I talk to my paintings. It probably feels more sometimes like a fight, where it's more so I'm working on it, I have the vision so clearly in my head, and I feel sometimes I'm like taking my paintbrush and kind of punching the canvas until that idea just kind of comes to life. Because something I do when I am working on something is, because we are our own worst critic, is that I like to take pictures of my process. So even if I only work for like an hour that day, I'll take a picture and I'll be able to see a difference. So I'm like, even though I get so sucked into it that I can't see it from looking right at it, by taking kind of like an outside perspective on my camera, I can see what I've actually accomplished something. And I'm like, okay, you're working on it, you're doing good, you're improving. And I have to trust the camera. I can't always trust what I'm actually looking at because I get just a little too absorbed into what the process is. This piece is "Don't eat that, you'll get sick." And it's meant to be taken very literal. And this is also, I think, a great example of some of my art where I'm not always trying to take art very seriously. Art is also about the aesthetic of things. And so even if it doesn't have a deeper meaning to it, I like making art that is just fun to look at. Be it if it's pretty, if it's just funny, if it's more just surreal. I don't think everything necessarily has to have a deeper meaning. It can be surface level. This piece in particular was actually inspired by some Halloween decor that I had, and it was just a unicorn skull. Granted, because it was a very cheap Halloween decor, it was not accurate. So it was a combination of actually looking up actual horse skulls versus the decoration I had. And it literally is just as it means. Don't eat that, you'll get sick. It's meant to be silly because one, it is a skull, so it can't get sick. It's also a unicorn, so it's not meant to be real. As well as the fact that it is trying to consume ice cream, even though there's nowhere for it to go, such it is kind of like dripping down. But I think this is a good piece that just shows that like you really can be inspired by anything. So this just, like I said, a Halloween decoration. It was pink, it was sparkly. I love the way it looks. And kind of like going from this one over to the other piece, Happy Thoughts, it is just meant to be a fun piece, just kind of exploring ideas. You can definitely get a deeper meaning from this one with the fact that the person's face is hidden from the clouds. Everything's so blue and dreary except for the rainbow coming out. But it also can be a piece where it's like these little raindrops have little happy faces on them. So it is just meant to be kind of a fun, lighthearted piece. The buttons have little happy faces on them. The rainbow, like I said, kind of symbolizes those happy thoughts. But to me, it's just kind of a pretty piece for me personally to look at. So this piece is The Wolf and the Sheep. It is basically just a whole storyline. So we kind of start from this panel here and kind of work our way across and down to the bottom. And basically what this storyline is it's about a relationship. This can be a romantic relationship, it can be more platonic, but it is a relationship. And we start with the person that is holding this vase of flowers, going over to the middle panel where we have the vase of flowers as well, but it starts to kind of fall as the person drops it, which kind of symbolizes that the relationship is kind of falling apart. Because as we continue to travel across, we have the person who starts to walk out the door. We can kind of confirm from that that is why the vase has fallen. And then jumping over to the actual figures from them grabbing the other person. And the grip is pretty tight, so we know it's not a happy grip, and there's definitely some upset, even if it's sadness, it's anger. And then the animals on the back of their heads kind of symbolize the nature of the relationship, and that the wolf is a little bit more predatory, a little bit more aggressive, and then we have kind of the sheep that's a little bit more meek and is meant to be a little bit more kind of docile and maybe even innocent to a degree. But this was a very fun piece for me to make. I love playing around with color, especially color palettes, and really limiting it. So this is basically just red, blue, and yellow, so just the primary colors. But, talking about the show as a whole, that it is really nice to be able to kind of just show my artwork here, even if it's not all conveying the same meaning, it's not all following the exact same themes. Because while I love making art for myself, at some point I'm just gonna end up having a bunch of paintings against the wall that I'm gonna run out of my own wall space. And so having the opportunity to share my artwork just with the Little Rock community, be it in like downtown Little Rock, North Little Rock, just being able to share my work with people and seeing how maybe it resonates with them. I get sometimes some little weird looks because I know my art can be a little funky, a little bit out there. But then there's also people who love my work and they light up when they see it, and that means the world to me. So art is important, not just to me, but I feel like to a lot of people. It reflects culture. It reflects individuals, how they were in that society. Regardless of what that art might be, it makes us question, the world we currently live in. Like, we could look at stuff that's more representational, and it's like, oh, this is what Little Rock looked like in 2024. We know that through looking at art. But we also can see more abstracted, non-representational stuff that maybe makes us question, what was going on during that time that would make an individual want to create a piece like that. And we see that in stuff in like Van Gogh's work, where his stuff is, it's very bold colors, brush strokes. Like, it's not meant to be completely representational. He was trying to capture a moment or a feeling, and we see that in work all the time. And so I think art can do a lot of things. Like I said, it can be fun, it can be deep, and I think that, like I said, it represents the people that live in that community where that art is being created. I have pretty much done art my whole life. I would say actually funny enough, up until high school, I did not want to be an artist, even though I did art my whole life. I wanted to be some type of scientist. But as I got into high school, I realized art was something that I actually liked. And it may sound silly, but like up until like middle school, I was like, my goal is to draw anime. And then as I kept going forward, my goal would get bigger and bigger. So I went from anime to I'm like, well, now I want it to look like this, and now I want it to look more realistic, and now I'm like, I want to do colors, and now I want to do this. So that goal just kept going higher and higher. But high school is when I first started painting. It was probably the first time I'd actually painted something. Before that, I was strictly colored pencils. And then it wasn't until college that I started doing oil paint. So I feel like when I started oil is when I kind of found that passion for painting. Before then, painting was just a way to make art. It wasn't something I necessarily like cared about. But with oil, I can take my time. There's no rush. The colors are very vibrant. I like that. The big thing is that I can take my time. I don't like to be rushed when I'm working on stuff. I don't like to be rushed in general. I wake up 2 hours beforehand so I can drink coffee, relax, slowly wake up. And I feel like that's reflected in the mediums I choose to make art in. I do like acrylic paint, but acrylic paint serves a purpose for me, where I'm like, it's something that I need to complete fast and I'm on a time crunch. Where with oil paint, like these are like paintings that I love, I'm putting some time into, they're not meant to be rushed, they're meant to take their time with it. But yeah, and it wasn't, so high school I got serious about art, and then college, I kind of like cracked down a little bit on, what it is I wanted to do. And now I'm doing the art markets. I'm working on like my own personal like comic book. I'm trying to get my stuff into galleries. And so that goal just keeps getting higher and higher. And I'm hoping, to reach it every single time. So it keeps kind of going higher and higher. My name is Carley Brown. This is my show, Layers of Whimsy. It's gonna be on display in the Argenta Library until September 6th. Come on down and see it.